What's up, everyone? Tera Roberts here with FantasyPros, and we are talking Week 18 NFL Power Rankings. As always, be sure to like this video and subscribe to FantasyPros across all platforms. Now let's go ahead and dive right in. Another week, another Jacksonville Jaguars ranking of number 32. There really wasn't much hope for a competitive game, but losing 10-50 to the New England Patriots, I doubt that there's anything that could possibly pull the Jags out of this bottom spot. At number 31, we have the New York Giants coming off a 3-29 loss to the Chicago Bears. There's really not much left to the team at this point, unfortunately. They are hurt, they are depleted, and they're starting Jake Fromm at quarterback this week. At number 30, for the second week in a row, we have the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers lost 10-18 to the New Orleans Saints, who are a defensive juggernaut, so this was expected. But the Panthers are now 5-11 after starting the season off with 3 straight victories. Falling one spot to number 29 are the Houston Texans. The Texans came into the game on a 2-game winning streak and a big win over the Los Angeles Chargers. But they came back down to reality this week, losing 7-23 to the San Francisco 49ers. At number 28, we have the Detroit Lions dropping one spot after a 29-51 loss to the Seattle Seahawks. DeAndre Swift's return to action was incredibly underwhelming, with just 4 carries for 32 yards. Falling one spot to number 27 is the Washington Football Team, with a 16-20 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. The team as a whole just at this point continues to struggle. The big question here, I think, is will Taylor Heinicke be able to maintain his starting job in the 2022 season? Falling 3 spots down to number 26, we have the Atlanta Falcons losing 15-29 to the Buffalo Bills. Matt Ryan continues to struggle, the run game continues to be ineffective, and the Falcons have been officially eliminated from playoff contention. At number 25, just go with me on this one, we have the New York Jets rising 4 spots following a 24-28 loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yes, they lost. Yes, Tampa Bay was without Chris Godwin and Leonard Fournette. Yes, Antonio Brown was dismissed mid-game, but this is still a reigning Super Bowl champion here that had to grind it out last minute to get a victory over the Jets. The Jets just continue to look better closing out the season. They are trending in the right direction, and I'm going to reward them for that. Up one spot this week to number 24, we've got the Seattle Seahawks with a 51-29 victory over the Detroit Lions. But unfortunately, it comes with a 6-10 record, and that is not exactly what the Seahawks were hoping for going into the season, and they face the Arizona Cardinals this week. The Denver Broncos fall one spot to number 23 after a 13-34 loss to the Los Angeles Chargers. The Broncos failed miserably on the ground, totaling just 73 yards between both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, against a Chargers team that literally just gave up 149 yards to Rex Burkhead. Another team that's rising 2 spots to number 22 after a blowout victory is the Chicago Bears with a 29-3 win over the New York Giants. The Bears are another 6-10 team, but they have won 2 of their last 3 games. Falling 2 spots to number 21 are the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are unfortunately officially eliminated from playoff contention after a 10-37 loss to the Green Bay Packers, bringing their record to 7-9 on the year. Kirk Cousins was out with COVID, but even with Cousins, I can't imagine the Vikings actually winning this game against the Packers at this point in the season. Another team falling 2 spots to number 20 are the Cleveland Browns. The Browns lost to the Steelers 14-26. Baker Mayfield struggled and Nick Chubb was very poorly utilized, leaving us to wonder if there are big changes coming this offseason for Cleveland. Moving up to number 19, we've got the New Orleans Saints. It wasn't an impressive victory by any means, beating the Panthers 18-10. Taysom Hill was serviceable. Marquez Callaway was his leading receiver. Their defense, as usual, was the real shining star here, keeping their playoff hopes alive. The Saints need help to get in. Winning isn't enough. The 49ers have to lose for the Saints to get in. But luckily for the Saints, this is a very realistic scenario. The Saints face Atlanta in what should be a very winnable game, and the 49ers face a big, difficult matchup against the Rams. Jumping up 2 spots to number 18 are the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers beat the Browns 26-14 in a game where Najee Harris was unstoppable on the ground with 188 yards. This game should be Big Ben's last home game, so it was a fitting swan song for him. But next week might not actually be the final game of his career, as the Steelers are still in the playoff hunt. They do need help from several teams, but it's possible that if they can pull off a win over the Baltimore Ravens, and they can get some help from the Indianapolis Colts, who have to lose to the Jags, it's possible. It's wildly improbable, but it is still possible. The Baltimore Ravens remain at number 17 following a 19-20 loss to the LA Rams, coming up just short as they were unable to hold off the Rams in the fourth quarter. Another game without Lamar Jackson for the 8-8 Ravens. Tyler Huntley did return to action, but he struggled through the air. The Ravens are still in the hunt for the playoffs, but they are another team in need of help, including a loss from the Colts. Coming in at number 16 are the Miami Dolphins, dropping 4 spots from last week. Just 1 week after a miraculous turnaround to place them in a position for a playoff spot, the Dolphins swiftly booted themselves out of playoff contention after a 3-34 loss to the Tennessee Titans. It might seem a little bit odd to have a team ranked here that has been eliminated from the playoffs, but to be fair to the Dolphins, they recently beat several of the remaining playoff contenders. At 15, we have the San Francisco 49ers beating the Houston Texans 23-7. The win was just a little underwhelming. Trey Lance was productive from a fantasy perspective, but it wasn't until the second half of the game that they really pulled away from the Texans. That same Texans team that is ranked 29th in our power rankings. The NFC is simple though. All the 49ers need to do is win to get in. But unfortunately, they do face the LA Rams. But the good news is Elijah Mitchell's return to action was excellent with 21 carries for 119 yards. If Trey Lance can be a little bit better this week and the run game stays strong, the 49ers can be a dangerous playoff team. Jumping 2 spots to number 14, we have the Las Vegas Raiders coming off a 23-20 victory over the Indianapolis Colts. It was a strange game where Zay Jones was the leading receiver, but they did hold Jonathan Taylor relatively in check, and they were able to pull out the victory. Where the NFC is simple, the AFC is very muddied at this point, and the Raiders are part of a 5-team grouping that can still get into the playoffs. But for the Raiders, if they can just take care of business against the LA Chargers, they're in. The Philadelphia Eagles jump up to number 13 after a 20-16 win over Washington, and they are officially in the playoffs. That said, of all the playoff teams, both in the NFC and AFC, and teams still in the hunt, they might actually be the weakest team and the most likely first-round boot. After a disappointing loss to the Houston Texans, the Chargers were able to move up to the number 12 spot with a victory, a 34-13 victory over the Denver Broncos. The season has been up and down for the Chargers, but Justin Herbert has been lights out. The 9-7 Chargers currently sit in the 7th spot, and they are not a team that anyone wants to face in the first round of the playoffs. The Indianapolis Colts fall back 4 spots to number 11 after a tough 20-23 loss to the Las Vegas Raiders. The Colts do still need to clinch their playoff spot, but a matchup against the Jags should tie that up fairly easily. At number 10, the New England Patriots fall 2 spots after a 50-10 victory over the Jags. I know. Why are they falling after winning? Well, it's not the Patriots' fault, really. We just had other teams that come in strong with victories over tougher competition. The Buffalo Bills come in at number 9 this week after a 29-15 win over the Atlanta Falcons. This was not an impressive victory by any means, but the Bills lead the AFC East at 10-6 and are simply playing for playoff positioning at this point. Moving up 2 spots this week to number 8 are the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals showed that we cannot count them out just yet with a victory over the Dallas Cowboys 25-22. It's been rough for the Cardinals, who are 11-5 but have still faced a lot of skepticism over their play recently. But Kyler Murray was excellent, and the depleted wide receiver core stepped up big time. Falling back to number 7 are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs beat the Jets 28-24, and yes, they are incredibly depleted, but this is the Jets, and it just shouldn't have been close at any point. This struggling has kind of become a trend, unfortunately, with the Bucs. Jumping up to number 6 are the Cincinnati Bengals after a big 34-31 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bengals are on fire right now, with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase quite literally scorching the earth. Now, can they sustain this pace? We'll find out, because the AFC North leading Bengals are playoff bound. This week's big winner, jumping 6 spots all the way up to number 5, are the Tennessee Titans. Call it a true testament to the will to survive, because despite significant player losses throughout the season, including Derrick Henry, the Titans are the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. And Derrick Henry is returning from IR. This Titans team has a shot to make a serious push for the Super Bowl if Henry can return postseason. Falling 2 spots to number 4 this week are the Dallas Cowboys after a 22-25 loss to the Arizona Cardinals. For the second week in a row now, Dak Prescott has looked very solid. But on the flip side, unfortunately, the running game continues to struggle, with both running backs combining for a total of 25 yards. Jumping up 1 spot to number 3, we've got the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are coming off a 20-19 victory over Baltimore. It wasn't impressive, and Matt Stafford yet again just didn't look good. But he has the weapons to make up for it, and they pulled out the victory. Staying in the number 2 spot this week are the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs came into the game winning 8 in a row and lost to the Cincinnati Bengals 31-34. I've seen a lot of rankings that are punishing the Chiefs for this, pushing them down, and I'm not going to do that. In a game where Cincinnati played to the highest possible level, the Chiefs were still in a position to win. My opinion of them hasn't changed. And holding strong at the number 1 spot are the Green Bay Packers. The matchup wasn't particularly difficult, with Kirk Cousins out and Sean Mannion leading the way, but the Packers took care of business in a very impressive fashion, continuing to showcase why they are the number 1 overall seed in the NFC, with a 13-3 record that leads the NFL as a whole. And that wraps things up for my Week 18 NFL Power Rankings. As always, be sure to like this video and subscribe to FantasyPros so that you don't miss out on any of our daily content.